Have you ever heard the sound of wings slicing through the night sky? Not the soft flutter of a bird, not even the shriek of an owl, but something heavier, unnatural, something that makes the air itself vibrate as if it were alive. The people of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, swore they had. And once they saw what those wings belonged to, they wished they never had. This story isn't folklore. It isn't a campfire tale whispered to scare children. No, it is rooted in cold, documented history. And if you don't believe me, ask the families of the 46 men, women, and children who lost their lives when the Silver Bridge collapsed into the icy waters of the Ohio River on a freezing December evening in 1967. Ask them if they believe in omens or monsters. Because for 13 months before that disaster, the small town of Point Pleasant was haunted. Haunted by something huge, with glowing red eyes and wings that could blot out the moon. The locals came to call it the Mothman. It began on a cold November night in 1966. Two young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry, and Steve and Mary Millette, were driving near an old World War II munitions plant just outside of town. The area was known as the TNT area, a maze of abandoned buildings, rusting metal doors, and forgotten tunnels. It was the kind of place teenagers went to dare each other or to escape the watchful eyes of the town. But that night, none of them expected to see anything more frightening than broken concrete and shadows. As they turned a corner near one of the old buildings, Linda screamed. In the headlights, standing in the middle of the road, was a figure taller than a man. Its body covered in a dark, feathery shape that wasn't quite wings, wasn't quite arms. Its head seemed too small, sunken into its chest, but what froze them were the eyes. Two enormous, glowing red orbs that didn't blink. Roger slammed the car into reverse, his tires squealing on the cracked pavement, but the thing moved. Not toward them, above them. With a sound like canvas ripping in a storm, it spread wings at least 10 feet across and took to the sky. They fled down Route 62, trying to convince themselves it was just a bird, just a trick of light. But then they heard it again, the sound of wings, this time behind them, then above them. Roger pushed the car past 100 miles per hour, but no matter how fast he drove, the creature followed. It didn't flap its wings like a bird. It glided effortlessly just above the roof of the car, its red eyes burning through the rear windshield. By the time they reached the lights of Point Pleasant, the thing had vanished. But the four young adults were shaking, pale, unable to speak without stammering. The police chief knew these kids. They weren't drunks, they weren't troublemakers. And yet every one of them told the same story. A winged humanoid with glowing red eyes chased them out of the TNT area that night. Word spread quickly. Soon, other sightings poured in. Couples parking in cars, hunters in the woods, farmers in their fields. Dozens of locals swore they'd seen the creature. Some described it as a bird, the size of a man. Others insisted it was more human than animal, with leathery wings like a bat. But all agreed on one thing: the eyes. Those burning red eyes that pierced the soul. And it didn't just show itself. It followed people, watched them, stalked them. Linda Scarberry told reporters that even after that night, she felt it outside her window, staring in at her. Another woman claimed that when she was driving home from work, the Mothman swooped down at her windshield, forcing her to swerve off the road. She survived with a broken arm, but she swore the thing had tried to kill her. Dogs began disappearing. One man reported that his German shepherd ran into the woods chasing a strange sound and never came back. When the man himself later encountered the Mothman, he noticed something clutched in its claws, something that looked far too much like his missing dog. As the weeks dragged on, the panic grew. Point Pleasant was a small town. Everyone knew everyone, and now everyone had a story. The old TNT plant became a place of dread. Even the bravest men refused to enter it at night. But the sightings weren't confined to the woods. The Mothman was seen perched on rooftops, standing in fields, crouching near doorways, and always those eyes. What terrified the townspeople most wasn't just its appearance, it was the feeling that came with it. Witnesses described an overwhelming sense of dread, as if they were being warned of something they couldn't escape. And perhaps they were, because Point Pleasant was about to face a tragedy so immense, it would forever tie the legend of the Mothman to death itself. The sightings in Point Pleasant didn't stop. In fact, they multiplied. Through late 1966 and into 1967, dozens of townspeople swore they had encountered the winged creature. Hunters, police officers, even respected businessmen came forward. They all told the same thing: the glowing red eyes, the enormous wings, and that suffocating feeling of being watched by something not of this earth. But the terror didn't end with sightings. Strange phenomena began to plague the town. Televisions flickered with static, phones rang with garbled voices on the other end, and radios screamed with bursts of static that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Many of those who had seen the creature complained of sudden headaches, nightmares, and paranoia. Mary Heyer, a reporter at the Point Pleasant Register, began covering the story in detail. She was no sensationalist. She was respected, trusted, a woman known for her seriousness. But even she admitted that something was stalking the town. And then came the men in black. Mary and several eyewitnesses reported being approached by strange men in dark suits, driving unfamiliar black cars with no license plates. They spoke oddly, like English wasn't their first language, and their questions were chilling. One man who saw the Mothman said two strangers in black coats came to his house the next day, warning him to never speak of it again. He described them as pale, with oddly fixed smiles, and voices that seemed mechanical. When he offered them water, one of them didn't seem to understand how to drink from the glass. Point Pleasant was becoming a nexus of fear. The people weren't just seeing a monster, they felt like they were being watched, studied, manipulated, and still, the Mothman kept appearing. One evening, a local family claimed they were driving across the countryside when a shadow passed over their car. They looked up and saw the creature gliding silently above them, its wingspan blotting out the stars. When they pulled into their driveway, they thought they had escaped until they saw it crouched on their porch roof, waiting. Another man told police he was driving home when two red orbs appeared in the road ahead. He thought they were bicycle reflectors until the orbs rose, higher and higher, until they were 10 feet above the ground. The creature spread its wings, and the man was so terrified that he crashed his car into a ditch trying to escape. Livestock were found mutilated. Cattle with their organs missing, drained of blood. Dogs barked at empty fields, hackles raised, eyes wide with terror. Farmers refused to go outside after dark, but it wasn't just the creature itself. There was a darkness in Point Pleasant now, a tension that hung in the air. People said they had dreams of disasters, visions of water, twisted steel, people crying out for help. Nightmares of bridges collapsing, of cars sinking into black water. No one knew it yet, but those dreams were about to come true. On the evening of December 15th, 1967, just after rush hour, the Silver Bridge was full of traffic. Families heading home, workers rushing to dinner, children in the backseats of cars singing Christmas songs. The bridge had been standing for nearly 40 years, connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, with Gallipolis, Ohio. Across the Ohio River, at 5:04 p.m., a single suspension chain snapped. In less than a minute, the entire bridge crumbled into the freezing river below. Cars plunged into the icy water. Steel twisted like paper. Screams filled the air before they were silenced by the rushing black current. 46 people died that night, their bodies trapped in the river or crushed beneath tons of collapsed steel. The disaster shook the nation. Investigators would later blame a single eye bar in the suspension chain that failed due to stress corrosion. But to the people of Point Pleasant, the explanation didn't matter, because many of them swore they had seen something on the bridge that night. Several witnesses claimed they saw a huge figure perched at the top of the bridge. Just before it fell, a winged shadow with glowing red eyes watching the chaos unfold. Some said the Mothman didn't cause the disaster, but foretold it. Others believed it fed on it, that it had stalked the town not as a warning, but as a predator, savoring the fear before the slaughter. After the Silver Bridge collapse, the Mothman was never seen again in Point Pleasant, but the damage was done. The survivors were haunted by the memory of red eyes in the night, of shadows on rooftops, of dreams that had come true in the most horrifying way possible. And for those who lost loved ones, the legend of the Mothman became a curse because every time they closed their eyes, they remembered what they had seen before death came to town. And Point Pleasant would never be the same. The Silver Bridge collapse left Point Pleasant frozen in shock. 46 lives gone in less than a minute: husbands, wives, children, neighbors. The Ohio River became a watery graveyard, and for days the town gathered on the riverbanks, watching divers pull bodies from the icy current. It should have ended there. A simple engineering failure, a tragic accident. But for the people of Point Pleasant, it was impossible to forget what had been happening in the months before. The glowing eyes, the wings, the thing that stalked their town at night. Many whispered that the Mothman had been an omen, a dark messenger sent to warn them of the coming disaster. Others argued it was something more sinister, that it had caused the collapse itself, feeding on the chaos and despair. The sightings didn't just vanish with the bridge. Survivors claimed that in the weeks after, they still felt watched. One woman said that every night she heard scratching at her window, even though nothing was there. Another swore she woke up to see two red eyes glowing from the corner of her bedroom, only to blink and find nothing but shadows. And then there were the dreams. A factory worker who had been on the bridge moments before it collapsed reported that he'd been plagued by nightmares for weeks beforehand. He saw the bridge falling, people screaming, the river swallowing cars whole. At first he thought they were just stress dreams until the night it all happened for real. Others had similar stories, prophetic nightmares, visions of disaster, and always, somewhere in the background, standing tall and silent, the Mothman. Mary Hyre, the journalist who had written about the sightings, also confessed to terrifying dreams. She dreamt of Christmas packages floating in dark water, faces she recognized from the town drowning in silence. She even told friends that she believed something catastrophic was about to happen. After the bridge fell, she said little more on the subject. Her articles focused on the victims, the grieving families, but those close to her noticed how frightened she seemed, how her eyes darted at shadows when she walked home at night. And then, only a year later, Mary Hyre herself died suddenly of a rare illness. Many in town believed her obsession with the Mothman and the men in black who had harassed her was connected to her untimely death. The men in black did not vanish either. Witnesses continued to report being visited by pale-faced strangers who asked about the Mothman, about what they had seen, about the Silver Bridge. Some said their voices sounded metallic, their movements stiff, unnatural. One man even swore that when he looked into the eyes of a visitor, they glowed faintly red in the dark. But what was the Mothman? Some said it was a cryptid, an undiscovered creature lurking in the hills of West Virginia. A massive bird, perhaps, mutated by the chemicals and explosives left behind in the TNT area. Others insisted it was something supernatural, a demon, or even the biblical angel of death. The Native American Shawnee people had their own legends. They spoke of a curse of land, a spirit of vengeance tied to Chief Cornstalk, who was murdered in the area in 1777 after coming to negotiate peace. With his dying breath, Cornstalk was said to have cursed the land for centuries to come. Could the Mothman have been the embodiment of that curse? Still others pointed to UFO activity. Strange lights in the sky had been reported alongside the creature, and the men in black's eerie behavior suggested something extraterrestrial. Perhaps the Mothman was not of this earth at all, but a visitor, a harbinger of disaster sent from beyond the stars. Whatever it was, it left a scar on Point Pleasant. Families refused to drive over bridges at night. Children whispered about the red-eyed monster waiting in the woods. Hunters who once roamed the hills freely now stayed close to town after dark. And yet, there were those who felt the Mothman had been misunderstood, that it hadn't brought death, but tried to warn of it. After all, the sightings stopped after the bridge collapsed, as though its grim work was complete. Still, for those who had looked into those glowing red eyes, no explanation could erase the terror. One man summed it up thus: "It wasn't just what I saw, it was what I felt. Like it knew me, like it was inside my head, like it wanted me to understand something I couldn't." And that was perhaps the most frightening part. The Mothman wasn't just a monster you could run from. It was something deeper, darker, an omen, a curse, a shadow that lived inside the very fear of the people who saw it. And though Point Pleasant was quiet now, the legend was far from over, because stories of the Mothman were beginning to spread beyond West Virginia. Sightings in other states, even other countries, began to appear. And in the years to come, the creature would be seen again, always before tragedy struck, always before death. After the collapse of the Silver Bridge, Point Pleasant was never the same. The small town carried its grief like a scar, but the story of the Mothman refused to fade away. Word spread beyond West Virginia newspapers, books, and later, documentaries carried the tale across the country. Soon, the Mothman wasn't just a local terror. It was a global enigma. And what made the story more terrifying was this: the Mothman didn't stay in Point Pleasant. Over the years, reports began to surface in other parts of America and even overseas. In 1986, workers near Chernobyl in Ukraine claimed they saw a winged, red-eyed creature circling above the nuclear plant days before the explosion. Survivors later described a shadowy figure with enormous wings gliding over the smoke on the morning of the disaster. They called it the Blackbird of Chernobyl. In 2001, several people in New York reported seeing a large, winged humanoid flying near the Twin Towers in the weeks leading up to September 11th. The sightings were brushed off, but after the towers fell, some swore the same red-eyed shadow was seen in smoke. From Mexico to Germany to China, similar reports began to emerge, always before catastrophe, always before death. And each time, the descriptions were the same: towering figure, massive wings, glowing red eyes that burned into the soul. So what was it? A demon? An angel? A harbinger of doom that appeared to warn or to feed? Back in Point Pleasant, the legend grew stronger with each passing year. The old TNT area became a place of pilgrimage for thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and cryptid enthusiasts. Some swore they heard wings beating in the night or saw glowing eyes in the trees. Others claimed nothing was there at all, just silence, heavy and suffocating. Yet locals, even decades later, still whispered about what happened. The stories hadn't died. They had grown, twisted into something larger. Parents warned their children, "If you see the red eyes, run." Hunters told newcomers, "Don't go to the TNT area after sundown." And every year, as December approached, the town remembered the bridge, the screams, the collapse, and the thing that had haunted them before it happened. But the most disturbing part? The Mothman has never truly gone away. Sightings continue to this day. In 2016, multiple people reported a winged creature near Point Pleasant once again. Photographs emerged grainy, blurry, but chilling all the same, showing a dark humanoid figure in the sky with wings stretched wide. It was as if the creature had returned, watching, waiting for something. And maybe that is what makes the Mothman more terrifying than any ghost or monster. Ghosts haunt one place, monsters can be killed, trapped, forgotten, that the Mothman, it doesn't belong to just one town, one country, or even one time. It is something else, a shadow that follows disaster, a figure that watches from the edges of human tragedy. Some believe it is a messenger sent to warn us. Others are convinced it is a predator, drawn to suffering like a vulture circling the dying. But here's the truth no one can escape. Wherever it appears, death follows. And once you have seen its red eyes, you are never the same. There are those who will tell you the Mothman is just folklore, a trick of memory, a bird misidentified in the night sky. But for the people of Point Pleasant, those who heard the wings, who felt the eyes staring into their souls, who lost loved ones in the cold black water of the Ohio River, the Mothman was real. And maybe it still is. Even now, as you listen to this story, somewhere in the world, someone may be hearing the sound of wings slicing through the night. Somewhere, someone may be dreaming of disaster, waking in a cold sweat with the image of glowing red eyes burned into their mind. And somewhere, perched high above a bridge, or a tower, or a city street, a shadow waits, watching, waiting, for the moment when it will spread its wings again. So the next time you're driving home at night, and you glance into the trees or the sky above, if you see two glowing red eyes staring back at you, don't wait, don't wave, don't look away, because history has already told us what comes next, and the Mothman is always watching.